The nurses didn't know I could hear them whispering outside my door at 3 in the morning. "His children haven't visited once since the stroke," one said, voice thick with judgment. "Just calls about his condition and how long until they can access the accounts." The other nurse made a sound like air escaping a punctured tire. Disgust wrapped in pity. I lay motionless in the hospital bed, machines keeping better track of my existence than my own flesh and blood, while the family I spent 57 years building calculated my worth in dollars instead of memories. The worst betrayal isn't being abandoned when you're dying. It's discovering that your absence was anticipated, perhaps even desired, by the same hands you once held through nightmares, fevers, and first heartbreaks. For 3 weeks, I maintained perfect stillness whenever they called the nurses' station, whenever doctors discussed my minimal responses and diminishing options. I listened as my son Thomas asked about realistic timelines in the same tone he once used to negotiate car purchases. I heard my daughter Elizabeth inquire about the necessary paperwork with the efficiency she brings to her corporate boardroom. The hospital room became a confessional booth where I received the unfiltered truth they never intended me to hear. Truth that arrived through fluorescent lighting that hummed like accusation, through the antiseptic smell that couldn't quite mask the stench of anticipated inheritance, through monitors beeping in rhythmic reminder of how quickly the devoted can transform into the calculating when mortality enters the equation. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have imagined as they discussed vacation homes and investment opportunities with voices barely lowered in hospital hallways, was that I had seen this coming months before my body betrayed me with blood vessels bursting in my brain. I recognized the lingering glances at the family silver during holiday dinners, noticed the casual questions about property deeds and investment portfolios slipped between discussions of grandchildren's accomplishments. The subtle shift from, "How are you feeling, Dad?" to, "Have you considered downsizing, Dad?" didn't escape my attention, nor did the silent exchanges between siblings when they thought my attention had wandered with age rather than sharpened with suspicion. The night before the stroke that delivered me to this sterile purgatory, I sat at my cherrywood desk, the same desk where I'd written their college recommendation letters, signed their first car loans, drafted the will that would have made them wealthy beyond their already considerable comfort. What would you do if you discovered that your entire legacy had been miscalculated? Not in dollars and cents, but in the fundamental currency of love and loyalty. If the children you raised to understand compassion and integrity revealed themselves as strangers wearing familiar faces? If the conversations you weren't meant to hear exposed not just disappointment, but a complete absence of the values you believed were your most important bequest? I lay in that hospital bed, tubes invading my body while machines translated my existence into numerical values, and contemplated this precise question. Each beep of the heart monitor became the ticking clock of decision. Each bag of fluid dripping into my veins carried not just saline and medication, but crystallizing clarity about what must happen next. My right side remained paralyzed from the stroke, but my left hand could still move when no one was watching, could still sign documents when the right visitor arrived. Tomorrow they'll gather at the attorney's office, dressed appropriately in the somber colors of recent bereavement, tissues clutched in manicured hands that never once reached for mine during those final weeks. They'll sit in leather chairs arranged around a mahogany table, expectations practically vibrating beneath practiced expressions of grief. The attorney, not the one they're expecting, but one they've never met, will remove papers from a sealed envelope I signed with my left hand the night before their scheduled meeting about end-of-life decisions that never included me in the planning. And as the document is read aloud, as understanding dawns across faces that share my features, but apparently nothing of my heart, they'll learn that sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't what's left behind when someone dies, but what's revealed when someone almost does. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead like angry insects, casting a sickly glow across the institutional beige walls that have become my entire world. 4 weeks since the stroke that collapsed me in my garden, pruning shears still clutched in my left hand, while the right went suddenly useless, like a puppet with cut strings. The machines surrounding my bed beep in syncopated rhythm, translating my existence into data points and vital signs. more faithful companions than my own children who've managed exactly 3 brief visits in 28 days. The antiseptic smell never quite masks the underlying sense of illness and mortality that permeate every hospital, regardless of how many lavender sachets the kinder nurses tuck into my pillowcase when they think I'm sleeping. My room sits at the far end of the neurology wing, around a corner and away from the nurses' station, placement that feels increasingly symbolic as the days pass and my family's absence becomes more conspicuous. The television mounted on the wall opposite my bed plays muted news programs during the day, a silent companion casting moving shadows across the room as I lie here, more aware than anyone suspects. The doctors speak about me in careful clinical terms when they enter. Minimal response, limited improvement, guarded prognosis, their white coats rustling as they review charts and adjust medications. What they don't realize, what no one has realized, is that my mind remains entirely intact behind the paralyzed right side of my face, behind eyes that can track movement but struggle to communicate comprehension. I hear everything. I understand everything. I remember everything. The stroke affected the motor functions on my right side and damaged my speech center, but my cognitive abilities and hearing remain perfectly functional, a fact that has become both blessing and curse as I've listened to conversations never meant for my ears. "Dad, we need to talk about practical matters," Thomas said during his last visit, his voice carrying that particular tone he uses for board meetings and difficult client conversations, the voice of someone delivering unpleasant news wrapped in pragmatic necessity. He stood at the foot of my bed, not quite making eye contact, his expensive watch catching the fluorescent light each time he checked the time. "The doctors say recovery could take months, maybe years, if it happens at all." Elizabeth nodded beside him, her manicured nails tapping against her phone screen, documenting the conversation or perhaps checking stock prices. I couldn't see clearly from my position. "We need to discuss power of attorney, access to accounts, management of assets while you're indisposed." The careful selection of words, the deliberate avoidance of more permanent terminology, couldn't disguise what hung unspoken between us. They were already dividing the spoils. When did my children transform from the small, warm bodies I once cradled through midnight fevers into these calculating strangers? Was there a moment I missed? Some essential turning point when values I thought I'd instilled were quietly replaced with something colder, something focused on balance sheets rather than bedside vigilance? The questions circle my mind during long hospital nights when sleep evades me, when the mechanical hiss of the blood pressure cuff automatically inflating every 2 hours becomes the only touch I can count on. My wife Margaret would have been appalled by their behavior. Margaret, who left us 7 years ago after 43 years of marriage, who made me promise on her deathbed to take care of our babies. How terrible to discover that I succeeded in leaving them financial security while apparently failing to ensure they maintained basic human decency. The night nurse enters, Sophia, my favorite, the one who speaks to me as if she knows I can understand, who turns on classical music during her shifts because she once noticed my heart rate improving when Mozart played. "Good evening, Mr. Harrison," she says cheerfully, adjusting my pillows with gentle efficiency. "I've brought your evening medications and a little surprise." She reveals a small container of applesauce, not the institutional variety from the cafeteria, but clearly homemade, the texture visible even in the room's poor lighting. My grandmother's recipe. "I thought you might enjoy something that didn't come from the hospital kitchen." The kindness of this small act, this recognition of my humanity beyond my medical condition, causes something to crack inside me. Some dam holding back emotions I've kept carefully controlled since waking in this room to discover how quickly 57 years of parenting could be discounted. "Your daughter called the desk earlier," Sophia mentions as she checks my IV line, her voice carefully neutral, but her eyes watching my face for reaction. "She wanted an update on your condition." The charge nurse spoke with her. What goes unmentioned, what doesn't need to be stated between us, is that Elizabeth didn't ask to speak to me, didn't suggest a visit, didn't express any desire for direct contact. The pattern has become familiar over these 4 weeks. Phone calls to the nursing station, occasional conversations with doctors, but physical presence rationed as if visiting hours were an inconvenience rather than opportunity. Meanwhile, I've overheard enough phone conversations in the hallway outside my room to piece together their activities. Thomas's weekend golf tournament, Elizabeth's vacation plans to the Maldives, discussions about my house, so much space for one person, and my investment portfolio. We should consolidate management. Have you ever discovered that the people you trusted most were measuring your worth by what you could provide rather than who you are? Have you ever lain silent while the truth revealed itself in absences, in conversations at your bedside that addressed you as asset rather than person, in the growing recognition that your unconditional love had been met with thoroughly conditional regard? The leather portfolio sits heavy on my lap as Nurse Sophia wheels me through the hospital corridor, early morning light streaming through occasional windows, painting stripes across the polished floors. 2 days of careful planning, of whispered conversations with Sophia during night shifts, of phone calls made when the room was empty, of secret arrangements orchestrated with the occupational therapist who has become an unexpected ally. The doctors were surprised by my sudden improvement, by my ability to communicate through nods and limited hand movements, by my insistence, conveyed through laboriously written notes, on leaving the hospital for an urgent appointment. The neurologist argued against it, citing concerns about my still fragile condition, but my determination prevailed when I managed to write a single, legally significant phrase: against medical advice if necessary. Even damaged bodies retain certain rights that cannot be easily dismissed. The hospital's main entrance approaches, glass doors sliding open to reveal a world I haven't seen in 31 days. Trees with early autumn colors, cars moving along streets, pedestrians engaged in lives uninterrupted by physical catastrophe. The sunlight feels different on my skin after weeks of fluorescent illumination, warmer and somehow more substantial, as if affirming that reality extends beyond institutional walls and mechanical monitoring. A black sedan waits at the curb. The driver, a young man in a conservative suit, opening the rear door as we approach. "Mr. Harrison," he says with professional deference, "Mr. Abernathy sent me to transport you to the office. We've been instructed to accommodate any special needs during the journey." Sophia helps transfer me from wheelchair to car seat, arranging a blanket across my lap, ensuring my comfort with the same careful attention she's shown throughout my hospital stay. "I'll be waiting when you return," she promises, her voice lowered to ensure privacy from curious ears. "Remember what we discussed about timing. The meeting is scheduled for 11. Your children and their attorney should arrive 15 minutes before. The conspiracy between us, this careful choreography of movement and timing, feels both exhilarating and terrible, like crossing a threshold that cannot be uncrossed, like setting in motion events that will transform relationships permanently. But as the car pulls away from the curb, as the hospital recedes in the rear window, certainty solidifies within me. Some betrayals cannot be forgiven through simple reconciliation. Some discoveries require response that matches their significance. The leather portfolio on my lap contains documents that will redefine everything. Every assumption my children have made, every calculation they've conducted, every asset they've mentally divided while I lay unresponsive in a hospital bed. The attorney's office occupies the 12th floor of a downtown building. Its reception area appointed with tasteful furnishings that signal success without ostentation. Edward Abernathy, my friend of 40 years, my legal counsel for 30, the godfather to my daughter who hasn't visited her hospitalized father in 27 days, greets me at the elevator with somber understanding in his eyes. "James," he says simply, clasping my left hand between both of his, communicating volumes through this single point of contact. "Everything is ready. The conference room is prepared exactly as you requested. No excessive questions about my condition, no performative expressions of sympathy, just the steady reliability that has characterized our friendship through celebrations and crises alike. This is why I called him from the hospital room 3 days ago, why I whispered instructions while nurses changed shifts, why I trusted him to arrange today's meeting without alerting my children to my improved condition or planned attendance. Edward wheels me into his private office, a space I've visited countless times through decades of legal consultation and personal conversation. The familiar environment, leather-bound books lining shelves, the antique desk that once belonged to his father, windows overlooking the city where I built my business and raised my family, provide strange comfort as we review final details before the confrontation awaiting us at 11 o'clock. They've confirmed attendance, Edward says, consulting his tablet. Thomas, Elizabeth, and Gerald Hurst, the estate attorney they've apparently engaged without your knowledge or consent. The betrayal implicit in this arrangement, my children consulting with an estate attorney while I still breathe, while decisions about my care and finances legally remain mine alone, no longer surprises me, no longer cuts with fresh pain. The past month has cauterized certain emotional wounds through repeated exposure, through accumulating evidence that financial considerations have outweighed filial devotion in my children's calculations. Are you absolutely certain about this course of action? Edward asks, his voice carrying no judgment but genuine concern as he reviews the documents I've brought, as he compares them against drafts prepared according to my telephoned instructions. Once implemented, these changes will be difficult to reverse. The question deserves consideration, deserves honest assessment of potential consequences and alternatives. For a moment, memories surface unbidden. Thomas at 7, holding my hand as we walked through the park after Margaret explained his goldfish had died. Elizabeth at 12, determined to finish a science project despite frustration bringing tears to her eyes. Both children standing beside me at their mother's funeral, their grief as palpable and genuine as my own. Were those connections real? Were those shared moments authentic expressions of family bonds I believed defined us? Or has everything transformed so completely that these memories no longer represent meaningful connection to our current reality? The clock on Edward's wall shows 10:45, 15 minutes until my children arrive, expecting to meet with attorneys and financial advisors to discuss management of my assets during my extended recovery. 15 minutes until they discover that the father they've discussed as abstract financial entity, rather than beloved parent, has understood everything, has heard their calculations, has made decisions reflecting this new understanding of our relationship. The portfolio in my lap contains the revised will completed 3 days ago, the changes to trust arrangements and property designations, the restructuring of financial distributions that will reflect more accurately the values demonstrated during my hospitalization. Not elimination. I cannot bring myself to disinherit them completely, but redirection, reduction, reconsideration of what constitutes appropriate legacy given what has been revealed about priorities and character. Have you ever stood at the threshold of revelation that will fundamentally change how others see you, how you see them? How decades of shared history must be reinterpreted through newly revealed truth? Have you ever discovered that the most painful betrayals often come not from enemies, but from those who claim to love you most completely, most unconditionally, until circumstances tested those claims against the harder currency of action, rather than words? The conference room door swings open with quiet precision, revealing a tableau that stops my children's conversation mid-sentence. Their faces transform in stages as they register my presence. First confusion, then shock, followed by something that flickers between guilt and calculation. Thomas recovers first, professional training taking over as he rises halfway from his chair. "Dad," he says, voice carefully modulated to convey appropriate surprise. We were told you were still in recovery, that you couldn't." Elizabeth remains frozen, her manicured hand still clutching her phone, her expression suggesting someone caught in a lie they didn't expect to be exposed. The third person at the table, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit who must be Gerald Hurst, looks between us with the wary assessment of someone suddenly realizing they've stepped into family drama they hadn't anticipated. The polished conference table reflects their expressions like a still pond, creating mirror images of discomfort beneath the surface where documents and tablets are arranged in careful preparation for discussions that won't unfold as planned. Edward guides my wheelchair to the head of the table, the position I've occupied in boardrooms and family gatherings for decades, the place that signals authority and expectation of respect. The symbolism isn't lost on any of us, as he locks the wheels with a quiet click that echoes in the room's stunned silence. "Mr. Harrison has asked me to facilitate this meeting," Edward states, his professional tone belying the 40 years of friendship behind his formality. "As you can see, his condition has improved significantly in recent days." The understatement hangs in the air between us, the gulf between their understanding of my capabilities and the reality now confronting them across polished mahogany. Elizabeth's eyes dart toward Thomas. Some silent communication passing between siblings who have clearly been coordinating more than filial concern during my hospitalization. The leather portfolio rests before me now, placed by Edward's steady hands, its contents still concealed but their potential impact hovering over the room like approaching thunder. "We're so happy to see you improved, Dad," Elizabeth manages finally, her voice carrying that particular strain of someone constructing appropriate response rather than expressing genuine emotion. "The doctors told us your recovery would be much slower. That communication might be—" She trails off, perhaps realizing that mentioning my supposed incapacity while I sit before her, clearly cognizant and present, only highlights the gap between their assumptions and reality. Thomas nods vigorously, professional smile fixed in place, the same expression he uses for difficult clients and contentious negotiations. "This is wonderful news," he adds, gesturing vaguely toward my presence as if my recovery were abstract concept rather than physical reality. "We've been so worried." The medical team indicated minimal responsiveness, limited awareness. "We were told to prepare for—" Again, sentence left unfinished, implications hanging in air-conditioned stillness. "Mr. Harrison has regained significant function in recent days," Edward explains, his tone neutral, but his eyes watchful as he observes my children's reactions. While speech remains challenging, his cognitive functions are entirely intact. He understands everything being said. This last statement lands with particular weight, the emphasis subtle but unmistakable. Thomas shifts in his leather chair, the material creaking slightly beneath his discomfort. Elizabeth's fingers have stilled on her phone, her usual digital fidgeting suspended in the gravity of this revelation. Gerald Hurst clears his throat, perhaps recognizing that his services may have been engaged under pretenses now revealed as premature at best, deceptive at worst. The morning sunlight streams through vertical blinds, creating striped patterns across the conference table, across documents prepared for discussions about an incapacitated man who sits before them fully aware, across faces struggling to recalibrate expressions appropriate to unexpected circumstances. "I think perhaps we should reschedule," Thomas suggests, gathering papers before him with the efficiency of someone accustomed to controlling difficult situations. "Given Dad's improved condition, we should take time to—" His sentence halts as Edward raises a hand, the gesture polite but unmistakable in its authority. "Mr. Harrison has specifically requested this meeting proceed as scheduled," he states, opening a folder of his own. He has been aware of its purpose and has prepared accordingly. The implication settles across the table like frost. Not just that I know about this meeting, but that I understand its intended purpose, that I comprehend the calculations and considerations that brought my children and an estate attorney to this conference room, while I supposedly lay uncomprehending in a hospital bed. The silence that follows carries weight beyond mere absence of sound, the particular heaviness of revelations not yet spoken but already understood, of consequences hovering at the edge of manifestation. Elizabeth attempts recovery, social grace emerging from years of corporate training and charity board participation. "Of course we want to include Dad in all decisions," she says, voice warming with practiced sincerity. "We've only been trying to manage things temporarily to ensure everything continues smoothly during recovery." The justification sounds reasonable on its surface, concerned children assuming responsibility while a parent heals, but rings hollow against evidence accumulated during 31 days of hospital conversations never meant for my ears. Thomas nods again, alignment with his sister's narrative automatic after years of sibling coordination. "Exactly," he affirms. "Just trying to handle practical matters, Dad. You've always taught us to be proactive, to anticipate needs rather than react to crises." The invocation of my own lessons, My emphasis on responsibility and preparation turns my values against me, uses my parenting as justification for actions that have revealed priorities I never intended to instill. Edward opens the folder before him, removing a single document that he places carefully on the table. Mr. Harrison has asked me to share some information regarding changes to his estate planning, he begins, the statement causing visible tension across my children's shoulders, across faces suddenly more attentive. As you know, his previous will and trust arrangements designated you both as primary beneficiaries, with equal distribution of assets. The use of past tense, designated, previous, registers immediately, Thomas's legal training clearly alerting him to significant revision before specific changes are detailed. Elizabeth's eyes widen slightly, her composure slipping as implications become clear. Gerald Hurst leans forward with professional interest, perhaps recognizing that his services have been rendered not just premature, but potentially irrelevant by developments occurring without his client's knowledge or participation. Have you ever faced the terrible freedom of consequence without obligation, of response without expectation of reconciliation? Have you ever recognized that sometimes the most powerful lesson we can offer those we love is allowing the natural harvest of seeds they've planted through their own choices, through priorities revealed not in words, but in actions when they believed no one was watching? The familiar weight of my dining room table grounds me as I sit at its head, oak surface polished to a soft glow from decades of family meals and holiday gatherings. 3 days since the confrontation at Edward's office, since the unveiling of revised estate plans, since my children's faces registered shock that transformed gradually to anger, then bargaining, then the particular strain of forced acceptance masking calculation. Home now, against medical advice but with private nursing care arranged by Edward, I find strange comfort in domestic surroundings after 34 days of institutional confinement. The afternoon light slants through windows overlooking the garden where my stroke occurred, casting long shadows across the dining room where we've shared countless celebrations, arguments, confessions, and ordinary Tuesday dinners throughout years I believed were building something permanent, something that could withstand any challenge through bonds stronger than circumstance or convenience. The hospice nurse, Marie, competent and kind without Sophia's particular warmth, adjusts my wheelchair position slightly before retreating to the kitchen, offering private space for the conversation scheduled to begin in 20 minutes. My children are coming to dinner, their first visit to this house since before my hospitalization, their attendance secured not through filial devotion, but through Edward's carefully worded invitation suggesting discussion of practical arrangements might prove mutually beneficial. The crystal water glass beside my place setting catches sunlight, fracturing it into rainbow patterns that dance across the tablecloth Margaret selected for our 25th anniversary. Patterns that shift and disappear as clouds pass outside, as light changes angle, as temporal conditions alter permanent objects. How appropriate these ephemeral displays appear now. How symbolic of relationships I once believed solid proving more contingent than their physical anchors. The revised documents sit in a folder beside my place setting, copies of what Edward presented in the conference room, evidence of decisions made with painful clarity during hospital nights, when machines beeped in mechanical rhythm and nurses' whispers carried through partially closed doors. Not complete disinheritance. I couldn't bring myself to such absolute severance despite what's been revealed, but significant reduction, redirection, restructuring of what once represented uncomplicated equal division. 60% of my estate now designated for charitable foundations focusing on elder care and stroke rehabilitation. College funds for grandchildren placed in trusts they can access only after age 30, with educational expenses paid directly to institutions rather than through their parents. The house and its contents donated to the Historical Society upon my death, with provisions allowing my children to select personal mementos, but preventing liquidation of property that represents 5 generations of family history. The remaining 40% divided between Thomas and Elizabeth, but structured to incentivize values their recent behavior suggests require reinforcement. Portions tied to documented volunteer service, to engagement with charitable organizations, to demonstration of priorities beyond financial accumulation. The grandfather clock in the corner chimes 4 times, its mechanism faithfully marking passages small and significant since my own father placed it in this room 53 years ago. 20 minutes until their scheduled arrival. 20 minutes to prepare for confrontation that feels simultaneously necessary and heartbreaking, justified and terrible. My left hand has regained nearly complete function now, fingers moving with deliberate control as I straighten the folder, as I adjust the place settings Marie has arranged with careful attention to my written instructions. 3 places, mine at the head as always, Thomas and Elizabeth at either side, with Margaret's fine china and sterling silver flatware reserved for special occasions. The formality feels appropriate for this conversation, for this reckoning with truths revealed during weeks when helplessness stripped away pretense, when assumed incapacity created conditions for authentic observation of priorities and values previously concealed beneath social performance. The doorbell's chime echoes through the house, announcing their arrival 15 minutes early. Uncharacteristic for children who have inherited my punctuality, if apparently little of my emphasis on presence beyond practical necessity. Marie appears from the kitchen, questioning glance seeking my permission before admitting them. I nod, straightening as much as damaged body permits, preparing for this meeting that feels simultaneously like ending and beginning, like conclusion and potential transformation. Their voices carry from the entryway. Professional greetings to Marie, exchanged observations about the house's condition, comments about my health directed to my caregiver rather than awaiting direct interaction with me. Old patterns revealing themselves even in this moment of supposed reconciliation, of conversation meant to rebuild connections fractured through revealed priorities and revised expectations. They enter together, unified as always in moments requiring coordinated response to unexpected developments. Elizabeth's expression carries practiced concern, the same carefully calibrated empathy she displays at charity galas when discussing beneficiaries from comfortable distance. Thomas's face reveals less. Years of legal negotiation having trained him to maintain neutral facade, regardless of internal calculations. Both pause momentarily upon seeing me at the table, rather than confined to bed, perhaps still adjusting to evidence that my recovery continues to exceed their expectations and understanding. "Dad," Elizabeth says, crossing to kiss my cheek with perfect social performance, her expensive perfume momentarily overwhelming as she leans down. "The house looks wonderful. It's so good to see you home." Thomas follows with briefer contact, a hand on my shoulder, a nod conveying acknowledgement without particular warmth. "You're looking stronger," he observes, assessment rather than celebration coloring his tone. Have you ever reached the moment when illusions can no longer be maintained? When relationships must either transform through painful honesty or dissolve through continued pretense? Have you ever discovered that sometimes the most valuable inheritance has nothing to do with property or possessions, but with courage to speak truth that might destroy comfortable narratives while creating possibility for authentic connection, however changed from what you once believed defined your most important relationships? The porch swing sways gently beneath my weight, morning light filtering through autumn leaves that dance in patterns never quite repeating themselves. 6 months since the dining room confrontation, since truth emerged from hospital whispers to claim its place at our family table, since priorities revealed themselves through actions rather than claims. The garden continues its cycles regardless of human dramas. Perennials returning after winter dormancy, rose bushes climbing trellises with patient persistence, nature demonstrating how continuing forward requires neither forgetting nor dwelling in what came before. Thomas visits every other Sunday now, his arrivals precisely timed but his departures less structured, conversations gradually extending beyond practical matters into territory neither of us anticipated exploring again. Elizabeth brings her children on holidays, her performance of familial devotion slowly acquiring authenticity at its edges, as genuine connection emerges through cracks in carefully maintained facade. The nurse no longer stays overnight. My recovery having progressed beyond expectations, my independence reclaimed through physical therapy and stubborn determination that surprised even those who believed they knew me most completely. The coffee cup beside me grows cold as I watch cardinals visit the feeder hanging from the oak tree Richard planted when Thomas was born. The folder containing revised legal documents no longer occupies center stage in our interactions, its contents acknowledged, but no longer requiring constant reference or explanation. What matters lives in subtler shifts, in Thomas arriving with books we once discussed before finances became our primary conversation, in Elizabeth's children asking questions about family photographs that require stories only I can tell, in silences that gradually transformed from tense to comfortable, as understanding deepened that certain fractures cannot be repaired, but may heal into different forms of connection if given sufficient time and space. The grandfather clock inside continues marking hours with faithful precision, its mechanism maintaining steady rhythm regardless of human recalibrations occurring within its measurement. Relationships not restored to original configuration, but reconstructed into arrangements acknowledging truth revealed rather than maintaining comfortable fiction, requiring constant performance. The dining room table no longer stretches to accommodate Sunday gatherings that once defined our family's outward appearance of connection. Instead, smaller configurations emerge: coffee shared on the porch with Thomas after church, lunch prepared together when Elizabeth's children express interest in learning recipes passed through generations, conversations occurring in spaces and forms never anticipated during hospital days when assessment focused on assets rather than relationships. The crystal water glasses still catch light in rainbow patterns dancing across surfaces, still fracture illumination into components revealing complexity beneath apparent simplicity. Appropriate metaphor for family reconfigured through necessary confrontation rather than maintained through comfortable pretense. The revised will remains in Edward's office, its contents creating framework within which new understandings gradually emerge. Not punishment for revelation, but recognition that values require demonstration through action rather than claim. That legacy transcends financial inheritance to include lessons transmitted through choices made when circumstances reveal priorities previously concealed. The wheelchair sits folded in the hallway closet, necessary still for longer excursions, but increasingly supplemented by walker, by cane, by unassisted steps taken with deliberate intention and growing confidence. The physical therapy exercises continue daily, muscles strengthening through consistent effort, neural pathways rebuilding through repetition and determination, that mirror emotional rehabilitation occurring simultaneously through conversations previously avoided, through acknowledgement of truths previously unspoken, through recognition that authentic connection requires acceptance of what has been revealed rather than pretense that it remains concealed. Thomas brought homemade applesauce last weekend, recipe attempting to recreate Nurse Sophia's grandmother's version that provided first genuine comfort during hospital confinement. The gesture contained no explicit acknowledgement of transformation occurring, but revealed changing understanding more clearly than words could express. Recognition that nourishment transcends physical sustenance to include witnessing another's humanity beyond utility, beyond transaction, beyond calculation of what might be received in return. Have you noticed how sometimes the most profound healing emerges not through dramatic reconciliation, but through small gestures acknowledging truth without requiring its constant discussion, through actions demonstrating changing priorities without needing verbal confirmation of transformation occurring? That sometimes the greatest inheritance we receive isn't what appears in legal documents, but what emerges when circumstances reveal who remains present, when presence offers nothing beyond itself, who recognizes value extending beyond calculation, who demonstrates priorities through choices made when no one is watching, but when someone is finally seeing with perfect clarity what has always existed beneath surfaces, maintained through mutual agreement to acknowledge only what confirms. Beliefs we prefer rather than truths awaiting recognition?